まずその素晴らしいアスリートの中で選んでいただいた、今年の中でもね選んでもらったっていうのもすごく素晴らしい嬉しいことですし、それだけの歴代の人たちがいる中で、複数回、そういう賞をいただけるっていうのは特別なことだと思うので、今おっしゃってもらった数々の名選手たち、去年もう一回取りたいって言いましたけど、今年来年もまた取れるように頑張りたいなと思います。1試合で考えたらそうなんじゃないかなとは思います。ポストシーズンの大事な試合っていうのもありましたし、自分でもよくできた試合だったなっていうふうには思ってます。そうですね、驚いた、自分に対してそう思う時もあれば、大したことないなって自分に対して思う時ももちろんあるので、どちらの瞬間もあるのかなと、アスリートやっててあるのかなと思ってます。それはね、引退するってなる瞬間まで続けられるのがベストですけど、それはいつ引退するのがね、いつなの、どう考えてるのって言われたら分からないのっていうのと一緒のように、分からないっていうことにはなってしまうんですけど、希望としてはね、今日で引退するっていうその日まで続けられるのがベストかなと思ってます。そうですね、パフォーマンスの度合いにもよりますけど、緊張するのはやっぱりマウンドの方が緊張するので、それは望んではいないですけど、試合を一人で台無しにしてしまうことができる、そういうポジションでもあるし、勝ちに貢献できるポジションでもまたあるので、ピッチャーっていうポジションはやっぱ特別なのかなとは自分の中では思ってます。いや、ないと言ったら嘘にはなりますけど、でも MLB でやりたいなっていう気持ちはもちろんあったので、その子に行かないと正直どれぐらい通用するかっていうのが、はっきりと分かるものではないので、不安はありましたし、ただでも楽しみみたいなものの方が、どうなっていくのかなっていう楽しみの方が大きかったかなと思います。本当にシーズン中からテレビだけじゃなくて本当に実際に来てもらってドジャースタジアムで応援してくれるっていう人も本当に多かったですし、自分自身にとっても他の2人あと2名いますけど、日本人選手にとっても本当に嬉しいことではあるので、今回 WBC も出ますけど、常にそのプレーで、楽しんでもらえればこれ以上ない喜びかなと思うので、そこで返していければなと思ってます。ピッチングはまだちょっとわからないっていうのが、出てもいいよっていう許可は一応もらったので、どの程度っていうのは、バッティングサイドも含めてどういう風になっていくのかっていうのはこれからまた話し合っていく感じですね。もちろん話せればベストですし、スモールステップで頑張りたいなとは思ってますけどね。直接ファンの人たちもそうですし、そういうね、いろいろな場面で自分が話せることによって、ファンの人たちとの距離も縮まるのかなとは思ってます。
13%, 20%, and in one season, 40%. Those aren't batting averages. Those are crowd surges, bodies, money, pressure. A stadium is a living machine, seats, beer lines, merchandise racks, and most nights it breathes normally. But when Shohei Ohtani is on the schedule, that machine hyperventilates. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Baseball has been fighting a slow bleed, attention slipping, patience thinning, empty seats haunting highlights like missing teeth. Then one man shows up, and the numbers spike so violently that researchers literally ask, is our math broken? Because if it isn't, then Ohtani isn't just a player. He's a force of nature. And if you think this is only about fame, wait until you hear Ohtani himself. Because the scariest part isn't the crowd, it's what he's willing to carry. Listen to how Ohtani speaks. Not like a king, not like a conqueror. He talks like a man standing in a room full of legends, almost apologizing for being chosen. He says it's special to be selected among great athletes, and even more special to win it more than once. Then he does something that sounds humble, but is actually terrifying. He says he wants to take it again. Next year, and the year after. And about retirement? He doesn't romanticize it. He basically admits the truth. He doesn't know when that day comes. He just hopes he can play until the day he decides to stop. Then he talks about pitching, how it's the one position where you can ruin everything alone, or drag your team into victory. That's not confidence. That's a man describing a high-wire act. So when scientists decide to measure his value, they aren't measuring a smile. They're measuring the blast radius. A research team ran a cold experiment. Take years of data 2017 to 2022 and ask a brutal question. Do superstars actually move crowds, especially on the road? Because home games have built-in reasons to fill up. But away games? That's the real lie detector. And the results? They're the kind of numbers that make experts stare at a screen in silence. When Ohtani is involved, away attendance doesn't just rise, it surges up to 20% overall. And in 2021, that spike hits up to 40%. That means the Ohtani effect isn't a soft glow. It's a floodlight, so bright it exposes everyone else. Because other elite names? The needle barely twitches. Sometimes it's a whisper. Sometimes it's nothing. And that's where the argument gets dangerous, because once you beat today's stars, the next comparison is the deadliest one, the legends. Baseball is a museum of giants, names etched into time. Nolan Ryan, Greg Maddux, Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, and the old rule was simple. The legends are untouchable. But when analysts lined up historical superstar impact spanning decades of pitchers, Ohtani's road pull doesn't just compete, it steps over them. And then comes the forbidden conversation, Babe Ruth. Ruth changed baseball, but Ruth played in a smaller world, fewer teams, smaller media, slower distribution. Ohtani? He plays in an age of instant markets. One swing becomes a global headline in seconds. So even if you can't perfectly compare eras, the meaning is brutal. Ohtani isn't just collecting wins, he's collecting entire economies. But there's one name outside baseball that makes people furious when you say it because it turns this into a fight. Michael Jordan. Here's where fans split into warring camps. One side says, "Stop it. Nobody touches Jordan." The other side says, "Then explain the economics." Classic research on Jordan estimated his value to other teams, not his own, at roughly $53 million. Think about that. Opponents benefited because Jordan showed up. Now switch sports. Different leagues, different structures, but the same phenomenon. A traveling superstar who prints value in enemy cities. And some estimates put Ohtani's road-driven wave at the scale of tens of billions of yen, with headline comparisons saying as high as 31.2 billion yen at the top end. Is that bigger than Jordan? That's the controversial spark. Because some people hear it and laugh. Others hear it and go quiet, because they can feel the shift. This isn't a jersey. This is a global magnet wearing cleats. But numbers don't explain the deepest question: why does this man feel different? For that, we have to enter a place baseball rarely goes. Philosophy. Ohtani's secret weapon isn't just muscle. It's a mindset that looks almost ancient. He made a dream chart as a teenager center goal. Number 1, draft pick. Around it, training, control, sharpness, expected stuff. Then one box hits you like a slap. Luck. And under luck, he didn't write pray. He wrote actions. Positive thinking, respecting tools, greeting people, even picking up trash. That's not superstition. That's a belief that fortune is something you manufacture through discipline. So, while critics call him a marketing miracle, he's been building this machine since childhood, bolt by bolt, in silence. And that mindset doesn't just change games. Some experts argue it's quietly rewriting something even bigger: how America sees strength. For decades, American sports culture sold a narrow image of dominance: loud, aggressive, larger than life. Asian men in U.S. pop culture were often boxed into smaller stereotypes: technical, quiet, Harmless, never the main hero. Then Ohtani walks in. 193 centimeters, built like a heavyweight, launching moonshots and on the mound, touching 160 kilometers per hour heat when healthy. But he also bows his head, smiles, respects opponents, plays jokes, shows joy. Some scholars argue that combination power without arrogance does something explosive. It breaks a cultural script. And of course, there's backlash. Some people insist, it's just baseball, don't make it social. But that argument collapses the moment you see what's happening in the stands. Kids, adults, old fans returning because the hero doesn't look like the old template anymore. And now we reach the final uncomfortable checkpoint, because when an athlete becomes a social force, the money doesn't rise. It erupts. One economist's estimates hit like a warning siren. For 2024, Ohtani's economic impact was calculated around 1,168 x E1,000, 181 won yen, about 116.8 billion yen. For 2025, it climbs to 1,302.48,000, 573 won yen, about 130.3 billion yen. That's not a player bump. That's a national-scale event wearing a Dodgers uniform. And here's the twist. For 2026, the World Baseball Classic is coming, and reports say Ohtani is expected to hit only, not pitch, because of insurance constraints. So the question becomes a cliffhanger. If the two-way element is restricted, does the myth weaken, or does the magnet stay just as powerful? Either way, the pressure is sharpening. Because when one man carries this much crowds, money, identity, one bad turn can feel like a collapse. If you had to choose, is Ohtani the most valuable athlete alive or the most fragile empire baseball has ever built? Drop your verdict in the comments, because this debate is not ending. It's just getting louder.